Rashan Gary for the Packers, he is out for the season with a torn ACL. For the season, he had 32 tackles, 6 sacks, the forced fumble, the fumble recovery. He has been a huge part of their team and their defense. How problematic do you think that is going to be against a Cowboys offense that we hope has found its footing? I know it's probably too early to say that off of just like the Chicago game after the Detroit game, but we're hopeful that this offense is going to continue to get better, right?
Yes, it should help that the Packers aren't the most talented defensive team.
That is true.
And that they probably won't be able to score on the Cowboys very much. So there won't be this back and forth. I don't see Sunday being a back and forth game. And what I mean by that is obviously Aaron Rodgers drives down the field in 4 minutes, touchdown, and then, hey, you better score something because it looks like they're an unstoppable force the way that at times they have been the last few years with the MVP Aaron Rodgers. So I think that Rashan Gary, to me, I think it's a nail in the coffin. I think it was already closed.
Yeah.
But if you needed some nails to make sure it wasn't the living dead, I think that you can take that Rashan Gary nail and make sure the coffin doesn't open up.
Now, to your point, I was reading an article on ESPN, and they go kind of with every beat writer about what we know, what we don't know about each team. And for the Packers, one of the first things it says is their 3-1 start was a mirage, and the Packers are in disarray. And here's a couple other things worth noting since you talked about how they'll probably struggle scoring points. The Packers averaged 17.1 points per game. That's the fewest they've had at this point since 1992, which was Brett Favre's first season in Green Bay.
Wow. And I'm
30 years.
And this is the tough thing is, well, I mean, they're so lucky, right? Because they went from Brett Favre in 92 to still Aaron Rodgers. They've had 2 quarterbacks through the whole thing. And actually, Broadus can tell you they had guys like Aaron Brooks and Mark Brunell and guys that they've been able to flip, throughout kind of more of the Brett Favre timeline, that they were able to actually get more draft picks for good backup quarterbacks that they had. With them only scoring 9 against Detroit, and now it was at Detroit, but that is even perfect conditions. AstroTurf Field, no wind, indoors, and they scored. And that's a horrible defense. We saw that defense. It's horrible. And so when I'm picking the Packers to score 13 to 17 points on Sunday, it makes me think, why do I think they're going to score 13 to 17 against our defense who has a week off?
Yeah.
They're rested.
Yeah.
They should be ready to go. And I know there could be a little bit of overlooking Green Bay the way that I am. I'm not playing in the game, so I don't care if I overlook them. I have no impact at all on the game. I'm hoping the Cowboys obviously don't go, hey, that Minnesota game, now that's a big game, and this team stinks. You see them play against Detroit. Look at the film we're watching. They're horrible. That's the other thing, too, I think people forget about is as a professional, when you're watching, and I can speak about this being a former major leaguer, and I know some people are like, well, thanks for pointing that out. Well, they tell me to point that out because we have new listeners and they don't know that.
That's right, and he pitched in the major leagues.
So sometimes I just have to say it because I'm told to say it. So as a former major league pitcher, at times when you're facing a bad team coming up your next start, you're seeing a whole bunch of bad at-bats.
Yeah.
And you know their record. I mean, for the most part, you might not know they're 42 and 56, but you know that they're not a good team. And so you just start looking at the film and you're just like, oh, this is bad. This looks easier than I think when you're watching a really good team on film. Like, oh, man, they can do a lot. I got to really, be on my game to make sure. So that's how sometimes you can fall into that trap. But I don't know how the Green Bay Packers are going to score on Sunday, but I'm sure they'll score some points.
I will give you some reason for Green Bay, I guess, optimism if you want. But to another injury, Romeo Doubs, their wide receiver, he's out multiple weeks with an ankle injury. Now, I know the argument you can make is, haven't their receiving targets not been particularly explosive? That is very fair. However, this is one to keep an eye out on, and it looks like it's trending in the Packers' direction, is Aaron Jones is still technically questionable for this weekend, but he got x-rays on Monday. They were good. They were negative, which is good in this instance, and he's practicing today. The Athletic is reporting, and they say that he is on track to play on Sunday against the Cowboys defense. Now, the reason why this is particularly relevant is Aaron Jones has been dynamic this year. Now, except when it gets close to the goal line, that's when Aaron Rodgers is like, you don't need the ball anymore. But he has 107 carries for 600 yards. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. Now, the tough part is he and Dillon, I think each only have 1 touchdown. So as effective as their run game is, they don't score rushing touchdowns.
Now, I will say this. I think Dillon is a starting running back for a majority of teams in the NFL. In fact, I thought for sure this is where Green Bay has kind of messed up and put themselves in a bad situation. I thought for sure when they drafted Dillon, they were doing the smart thing, which you think organizations should is, all right, we have a good running back, but we shouldn't pay running backs. So make sure you draft one that their rookie year, they still have that veteran guy with them. And then after their rookie year, bam, that guy takes the lead as the running back. And then he has a year or two with him just being somewhat the main guy. And then you draft a guy in that guy's 3rd or 4th year to make sure that you have your next rookie that is not everything on his plate his rookie year. And then that 2nd year, you put everything on his plate. But then they re-sign Aaron Jones to a big deal. Now, that
4 years, $48 million, I think.
Me saying that, I think the Cowboys are going to win this game easily. But A.J. Dillon is a good enough running back. And the Cowboys at times have struggled so much against the run. I don't think it'll happen, but if he's the guy, I could see 30 carries for 150-plus yards and a couple touchdowns. If the Cowboys are going to lose.
Like combined between the two? Because Jones is looking good.
Yes,
Jones is going to play.
But if he didn't play.
Okay.
I'm just saying Dillon is good enough and strong enough and powerful enough that I believe the thing about like Tony Pollard can only carry the ball 15 times max in a game, that might be true. Right now, he's only carried the ball 14 times in his life. That's the most he's ever carried the ball in college or pros. So we don't know what he can do. But we've seen Dillon in college and also in the pros where he can carry the ball 20-plus times and carry a team.
And from the 3-6-0, Packers blew that, wasting the pick on Jordan Love. I don't know if you saw, one of their players said he's better than a lot of starting quarterbacks in the league.